Just around the corner is NFL free agency, and the Tennessee Titans are going to have a ton of moves to make. Welcome into Titans Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Brett Alper, and I can't believe we haven't done this show already, but on today's show, we're going to be going over the top free agent targets for Tennessee in 2026. Now, I want to show you guys the amount of cap space that the Titans have going into free agency next week. This is the list of the top 10 teams, and if you can see, the Titans are at the number one spot with $94.864 million for them to use. We also know, if you watch the video on the channel I think it was a week ago, the Titans do have to spend at least $50 million. And with $90 million in cap space, I think this is going to be very, very easy for them to get this to do so. But we're 1 week away. When we get to March 9th, that's when the legal tampering period begins, and we can start to see these moves to be made. So when the Titans make a signing, we got you with a video. We're also 100 subs away from 12,000, a big milestone here on this channel. So if you want to stay up to date with all your Titans news and rumors, go and hit that sub button right now. Let's start with the first free agent target that I think this could be. And once I saw the news last week, I think Tyler Linderbaum is going to be a big target for the Tennessee Titans this offseason. He's going to get a lot of money, but when you have a bunch of cap space, it's very easy to go out and pay. He is probably the number one guy on everybody's free agent big board, the top guy to sign in NFL free agency. And why? Well, because he is extremely talented. He is only 25 years old, and you can see when he is on the offensive line, he is to be messed with. He is awesome. And so for the Titans, well, the question is, why would they go after Tyler Linderbaum? Well, if we saw them last week, the Titans need a center now because they have released starting center Lloyd Cushenberry, moving on when they literally just signed him to a 4-year, $50 million 2 years ago. And now Cam Ward's going to need a new center. But if you're going $50 million and you're cutting him immediately, you have to feel like you have a bigger picture in mind going into free agency. And who's the big center? Well, that's Tyler Linderbaum. And why is that? Well, because he's awesome. 79.4 PFF grade. The pass blocking grade needs to get some work a little bit, but the run blocking grade is perfect, 83.2. Only 2 sacks allowed, and he's a very disciplined player. Only 4 penalties on the entire year. And I've said multiple times that you are going to have to improve this offensive line. And the first move that you can make is getting Linderbaum. But the question is, how much is he going to cost? Well, you have $94 million in cap space, and according to ESPN, they project that his market value is going to be $20 to $25 million a year. That's a lot of money. But when you get a guy with this production and get a guy like Tyler Linderbaum that I think could be in Tennessee for a long period of time, you have to do that. And you have to get Cam Ward some protection. You cannot go into 2026 with his second year under his belt or going into his sophomore season and having him be sacked 55 times. That can't happen. It will ruin his confidence and ruin his development. The number one option that the Titans need to do, or the number one goal, is to improve this offensive line. And I think by signing Linderbaum, that helps the offensive line get better. Also makes the people just around him get better. You're going to have Skronsky on one side and Linderbaum right next to him. I think that'd be perfect. Hopefully Dan Moore Jr. can pan out after you gave him a ton of money last year, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll ask you guys, though, should the Titans go after Tyler Linderbaum? Give me a Y for yes, or give me an N for no down in the comment section. I'm going my Y's 100%. Sticking with the offense here. I say you got to improve the offensive line. Well, you also need some wide receivers. And Wan'Dale Robinson is probably going to be the Titans' number one target on the free agent market when it comes to wide receivers. Why? Well, because he's young. He comes from a great school. Yeah, exactly. A great school. His size, very small, 5'8", 185 pounds. But you can see the statistics there. He is going to catch the ball a ton every single year now since he became one of those top guys because, well, Malik Neighbors was injured for the Giants all last year. 92 catches, 93 catches, and he improved his yards per catch from 7.5 from 2024 to 11 in 2025. Those are getting the first downs now, and only 3 drops on the season. And even if you signed him, he'd still probably be your best wide receiver. Because when you look at the wide receiver depth chart, well, Van Jefferson's going to be a free agent. You have Elke Manor. You have Chimere Dike. Still Bryce Oliver, Mason Kinsey, and I have Calvin Ridley down there on IR because he's still injured, but he is most likely going to get cut. So he improves your wide receiver room. Still think you need a top guy, but if you get your slot receiver, that'd be perfect. And I think this is the writing on the wall with the Tennessee Titans. Why? Well, because your offensive coordinator is now Brian Daboll. Get a guy that you know personally best with Brian Daboll. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be fitting perfectly in that Tennessee system now. I think it would be a match made in heaven, and he probably won't cost as much as a number one wide receiver, which we'll get to another wide receiver later in the show. Spoiler alert. The next guy on the list, John Franklin Myers. You could call him a D end. You could call him a D tackle. He plays defensive line for this Denver team, and he has been a very, very, very solid player for Denver. When you talk about the best players on this defense, which Denver, they had a top 5 defense in the NFL. You had Nick Bonito. And who's the guy right next to him? John Franklin Myers is that guy that is going to help this team in 2025 as your guy on the defensive line, whether he played both left or in the center or on the edge, he still was great. 7.5 sacks, 39 pressures, only 26 tackles, but we're looking at a guy that's probably going to play interior next to, guess who? Jeffrey Simmons, and you're going to need to replace T'Vondre Sweat. But it's another reunion type of player that you can find in Tennessee. Where did John Franklin Myers play from 2019 to 2023? The New York Jets. And who was the head coach of the New York Jets for a couple years during that time period? Robert Saleh. So they already know each other, fits well in the system. This could be another reunion, just like I said, with Wan'Dale Robinson and Brian Daboll. And Albert Breer, he thinks that this is going to be a possibility. Here's what he had to say. That is the name that you want to watch, John Franklin Myers, who might get more than you think next week. He will turn 30 in September, but had a really solid year for the Broncos and brings inside and outside versatility that is immensely valuable in today's game. A reunion with Robert Saleh in Tennessee might make some sense. I think that it's going to happen. I think that you have the money that you could be able to pay for him because he's probably going to cost you about $15 to $20 million, but it'd be a major upgrade from Sebastian Joseph Day, who plays pretty much the exact same position. Sebastian Joseph Day plays on the outside and also plays on the inside. And if you upgrade him with John Franklin Myers, you have that two-headed monster of Jeffrey Simmons and Franklin Myers. Hopefully you find you get another person on the edge if you trust Femi Oladejo. That could be neither here nor there, but you have that defensive line that you are rebuilding throughout this team. Coming up on the back half of the show, we're going to talk about more free agent targets that the Titans could sign. But before we go and do that, I got to tell you about our sponsor of today's show, and that is Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. So don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks, simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you can cash in. You also have early payouts. So if you want to cash out your lineup before the game even finishes, if it gets out to a hot start, you have that option to do so. And you know, it takes 2 seconds to make a lineup. Football's over, but you still got basketball. Baseball's right around the corner. Hockey is going crazy. And you know I love my esports too. But you got to download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right. So the next guy I think is probably the most underrated entire guy in the free agency class this season, and it's Montaric Brown, the cornerback from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think that he would be highly looked at on this team as a free agent. I don't see many people talking about Brown this year, but I think that he is going to get a decent amount of money and going to be a rotational player, a solid starter. He's only 26 years old, and he had a really, really solid 2025 season. I mean, 12 pass breakups for a corner. When they target him, the QB rating is only 73.5. Like, that is really good for a cornerback that isn't getting a lot of attention. But I will say this. What was the worst part about this Titans team in 2025? It was the cornerback room. You traded away Roger McCreary. You traded away Jarvis Brownlee Jr. You're left with L'Jarius Sneed, who is always hurt. Darrell Baker Jr., you can see right there with the star. Same with Jalen Armour-Davis. They're both free agents. So right now, you're going to have 2 cornerbacks on the roster because that's bad. And not to mention, there's a lot of people that probably aren't going to be here next year. The Titans cornerback room, I would have to say, is the worst, and I mean absolute worst in the NFL. They could not guard a single player, and that was the death of them. And also, we got to mention that, well, we talked about L'Jarius Sneed being that number 1 on the depth chart. Well, he's probably not going to be here. All the rumblings are saying that he is going to get released. So that leaves you with 2 rotation practice squad players on the roster. You cannot go into 2026, not even with a draft pick. You don't want your entire defensive backs to be a whole bunch of practice squad players and then draft picks, rookies. No, you're going to have to go out there and sign free agents, sign cornerbacks to get this room good. And when we talk about the amount of salary cap, it's not going to cost you that much when you get a guy like Montaric Brown. It is only going to cost you, according to Spotrac, his market value is 3 years, $27 million. Do the math. That is $9 million a year. That is solid for a solid cornerback. I think this is probably another guarantee. So I think Wan'Dale, John Franklin Myers, and Brown are going to be. Linderbaum, we'll have to wait and see. But the last guy on my list is another, well, he could be part of the list of all the wide receivers that have come to Tennessee and put on the jersey and looked absolutely washed. He could join the likes of Randy Moss. He could join the likes of D-Hop. He can join a whole bunch of other guys like Julio Jones. The list goes on and on and on. But Mike Evans still has something left in the tank. And if the Titans want to go out and try to sign him, they should. Because even though he played 8 games this year because he was hurt, this is a rare occurrence when he gets hurt. If you look at the last 4 seasons, incredible numbers. I mean, 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards, 1,100 yards, and 70 catches every single time. And you saw when he was healthy, you saw he still had the talent. Only 4 drops on the year. I don't think he's going to have another season where he's going to be as hurt as much as he was in 2025. He gets that offseason. And 32, I know it's old, but you still have something left in the tank. But he has a whole list of things that he wants to be on the next team because it's most likely that he is not going to be returning to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He wants a QB he believes in. I mean, Cam Ward checks off that box. Top shelf OC. Brian Daboll checks off that box. Promise of high volume touches. You would be the number 1 wide receiver 100%. So it checks that box, but then chances at a Super Bowl, can't say that that's going to happen. I'm not sure if that's what the Titans have because this is a rebuild. This is not going to happen in day 1. So is this everything that the Titans have for Mike Evans to be a part of this team? You got the money. Maybe that could help. But if he wants to be part of a Super Bowl team, that is not going to be what the Tennessee Titans can offer Mike Evans. But you have a QB, you have a nice offensive coordinator, you have a team that is building. But at 32, is that going to be something that you want to stay here for another 2 to 3 years when you're 35 years old? No, because that's how long it's going to probably take for this Titans team to rebuild. But you see it improving. You see it improving. You have your coaching staff. You have your quarterback. You have your best defensive player. So I think that those are the building blocks around it, but it's not going to happen in just overnight. That just can't happen. It's not going to. Sorry to break it to you guys, but it is. What position is the Titans' biggest need this offseason? You let me know. I say it's the offensive line. Get Cam Ward some protection. He has time to throw. He is going to look like a great franchise quarterback. If he gets sacked 55 times, you're going to have the same exact stuff that happened in 2025. That's as simple as that. Get the offensive line, but you let me know down in the comment section. And while you're down there, also hit that sub button. If you're at the end of the video, obviously something is doing right. So go ahead, hit that sub button. When free agency happens next week, we make videos of every single signing. So don't miss out. Hit that, and as always, tighten up.